Hello YouTube, and welcome to the monthly stats video for November. Again, it's taken a little while for Octopus to produce my bill, but now that everything's all lined up, they're saying that my December one should come through on time. So fingers crossed, it'll definitely all be good for December. But yeah, I've got it through now, and quite a lot of usage this month. So without further ado, let's have a look at what's happened. So we generated a total of 308 kilowatt hours in November, which is about 200 kilowatt hours less than October, and I guess that's what you'd expect. We imported 764 kilowatt hours from the grid, so quite a lot this month, and we exported just 17 kilowatt hours, which is pretty good. So yeah, we've been using the Tesla a lot, so I think that's pretty much going to be where most of that imported energy's gone. So let's look at the money, and in total we used 1,380 kilowatt hours in November. The cost for that, if we didn't have solar and batteries, would have been £526.14. That's incredible. That's the price for a standard tariff. Solar saved us £114.19. Having a battery and using the Octopus Go or the Intelligent Octopus Go tariff to charge the batteries at night and stuff, that saved us £302.90, which is a huge difference. But I actually think there's potentially some improvements to be made there, if I'm prepared to get rid of my deemed export FIT payment, which I'm still trying to decide on. But more about that later. So our FIT export for November was just £28.67, which means that the total cost to us for 1,380 kilowatt hours of electricity was just £111.02. £14.39 of that was the standing charge, which means that the average price we paid per kilowatt hour in November was just 7p. So that's pretty good. The off-peak price is 7.5p. So the fact that I can say that all of my electric usage has been 7p means I'm doing pretty well. So yeah, pretty happy with that, considering it's the winter and we're not actually getting much solar. So as I said, our electricity bill was £111.02, and the FIT payment's £28.67. So our energy costs for November was just £82.35. So that's pretty good. The days of a zero bill have gone now, but for the amount of electricity we used, £82.35 is not very much at all. And like I say, I think there's some improvements we could make here if I'm prepared to get rid of my deemed export FIT payment and go on an export tariff. So let's look at the pie charts now. Here is the pie chart that shows what we did with the generated power. So we used 291 kilowatt hours of the total, and we exported 17 kilowatt hours, so it's just over 5%, so that's not too bad. Quite happy with that. If we compare that to October, you can see that we've managed to export a bit less of the total this time, which is what I always try to achieve. Okay, now let's look at the pie chart for where the power that we got was generated. And you can see that the shed solar is a very tiny amount now. it gets obstructed by trees very quickly in the day, so it generates very little at this time of year. If I could chop down a few trees in my neighbour's garden, I'd get quite a bit more, but that's not really an option. The wall panels are really helping us out now in the winter months. You can see they make up quite a big chunk now, and it certainly helps a lot at this time of year. And if we compare that to October, you can see that the shed-mounted solar proportion has shrunk. And like I say, the sun's so low now, and there's literally a line of trees almost in front of my shed in my neighbour's garden, and they just catch it most of the time. Once the sun's a bit higher, it'll be okay. So now let's look at the pie chart that shows the cost of the various electricity that we used, and you can see that 291 kilowatt hours was free. That's obviously from the solar. The bulk of it, 912 kilowatt hours, was using the off-peak cheap rate available from Octopus Go, and then there was 106 kilowatt hours that was also cheap rate, but that was during peak times. But that's because I managed to, the car happened to be charging outside of the normal 5-hour block, and my system will automatically switch on a load of other stuff as well when that happens. And so I can charge up some house batteries and heat some hot water using the immersion and stuff all at the same time during the day if I want to. So I can take advantage of that a little bit. And yeah, just a small portion there from the grid, and that was mostly a couple of days where the weather told me it was going to be sunny the next day, and then it wasn't, so I didn't charge my house batteries overnight, and then subsequently we ran out of power around tea time and had to draw a bit from the grid when we were making tea. So lesson learned at this time of year, I think I'm just going to always charge the battery every night. And if we compare that to October, again, you can see that the proportion of generated power has dropped a lot. And that's to be expected, but we've managed to use a lot more of the cheap peak rate. You can see. Okay, so I've put this pie chart back in again just to see where most of this power is going. You can see that almost half of it is just going in the Tesla, and that's because we've been doing a lot of mileage in the last month or so. My son's back from university, and he's got a placement with a local company, and he doesn't drive, and the trains aren't always reliable, so we've had to sort of drop him off and pick him up quite a bit, and that's racking up the mileage on the Tesla a bit. So yeah, quite a bit extra in travel costs there. Our best day was on the 11th of November, and on that day we generated 22 kilowatt hours. And here's the graph for that day. You can see it's a pretty nice one, but you can see how much of the shape of the nice sort of bell shape is cut off at the end of the day. It just drops dramatically. Instead of decreasing steadily like it increases steadily in the morning, and that's just because of this line of trees that is on a hill behind the house. So now the sun's that low, it just starts to go behind those trees, soon after 1 o'clock really, and then it just slowly gets further and further behind them, and so the generation really drops off a cliff. It's a shame really, because we could get quite a lot more hours of generation if it wasn't for that, but it only really affects us at this time of year. Our worst day was on the 18th of November, and on that day we generated just 1.6 kilowatt hours, and here is the graph for that day, and yeah, it's pretty abysmal. Didn't go above a kilowatt even at its peak, so not a good day. here is our usage broken down into half-hourly segments, and you can see that, yeah, almost exclusively we're using the cheap rate that's available when it's available. There are a few times, like I say, where I didn't charge the battery up because the weather said it was going to be good, and consequently we ran out of battery by tea time because I didn't charge it overnight. And yeah, like I say, lesson learned, I'm just going to charge it to full every night now, because there's so little generation this time of year. There's always somewhere to put the power, even if we had a sunny day. I don't need to keep any spare space available in the house batteries, and so I'm just going to fill them up, and then that way I can't get in that situation again. Okay, so in November, yeah, we had no off-grid days and obviously no consecutive off-grid days, so the totals for the year to date remain unchanged, still just 126 off-grid days, and the longest streak was still 25. Okay, well, that's the stats for this month. Not too bad really for this time of year. We're doing okay, but I think we could do better. Like I was saying, at the moment we have a deemed export for our as part of the FIT scheme. So they just deem that half of all the power we generate gets exported, and so we get paid as if that's what we exported. In a lot of cases I don't export anywhere near that much. I only export about 5%, somewhere between 5 and 10%. So technically I make a little bit on that, but I've been taking part in some of these Octopus saving sessions, and I understand now that if you export power during the saving session, you can get paid quite a lot for it, and my system allows me to you know, just arbitrarily export power when I want to. So I can quite easily do that when there's one of these saving sessions, and I've seen people making, you know, quite a lot of money just for exporting power for an hour and a half, and probably more than I would save by keeping my deemed export. So I'm looking into this now. I'm trying to run up some numbers and figure out whether it's worth throwing away my deemed export payment and going over to an actual export payment where they'll actually read the export value from my meter and pay me how much I actually export, and so that way obviously I'll only get paid less because I'm only going to be paid for sort of the 5 or between 5 and 10% that I usually export each month, but I'll be able to make money on exporting during these saving sessions in the winter, which potentially could offset that cost. And the other thing I can do is, if I'm on a deemed, if I'm no longer on the deemed export and they're actually measuring my export, I could potentially go on to the sort of their export tariff thing where you get flexible price for you know, the time of day that you export. So if I can see that at certain times of day, you know, they're going to pay me, I don't know, 15 pence per kilowatt hour that I export, then I can just dump a load of my power out during that time and make 15 pence a kilowatt hour, and then I can just charge my battery back up at night time again for 7.5 pence a kilowatt hour, and I can make some money that way as well. So I actually think overall I could bring my electricity costs down even more by utilising that system. So yeah, like I say, I'm going to run some numbers and decide whether or not to do that, and maybe that's something I should start from the 1st of January, so that, you know, I can have a whole year to compare how well I do next year with how I did this year. But yeah, I'll let you know more about that in the next video. But that's it for this month. Please do like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video, which hopefully won't be very long. I've got another one that I'm editing, and it should be out soon. So stick around for that one, and I'll see you all on the next one. Cheers.